The girl on the bench. It was a cold, gray morning in a quiet neighborhood outside Los Angeles. The streets were almost empty, and a soft wind moved through the trees, scattering dry leaves on the sidewalk. In the middle of a small park, a man sat, alone on a wooden bench. He wore a black coat, jeans, and a simple cap pulled low over his face. He looked like any other tired man trying to escape the noise of the world. But if someone looked closely, they might notice something in his eyes, a deep sadness, a kind of silence that lives in people who've lost something they don't talk about. The man was Keanu Reeves. He wasn't thinking about movies, fame, or money. None of that mattered. He had just come back from visiting a small graveyard where his sister was buried. She had passed away years ago. But every year he returned to sit beside her grave, light a candle, and speak in silence. This time, something felt heavier, lonelier, like time had stretched, and the years had made the pain deeper instead of softer. As Keanu sat on that bench, lost in thought, he heard laughter. It was soft, pure, and coming closer. He looked up and saw a little girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old, running across the grass. She wore a bright yellow jacket and held a balloon in her hand. Her boots were muddy, her cheeks red from the cold, and her dark hair was tied in 2 messy ponytails. She was alone, yet fearless. She stopped in front of him, staring curiously. "Why do you look so sad?" she asked. Keanu blinked. He wasn't used to strangers speaking to him like that, especially not kids. "Just thinking," he said softly, offering a small smile. "Thinking about what?" He hesitated. "About someone I miss." The girl tilted her head. "I miss someone too, my daddy." There was a long pause between them. Not awkward, just quiet, to strangers with the same kind of sadness. "Where is your dad?" Keanu asked gently. The little girl sat down beside him, not afraid. "He left. Mommy says he didn't want to stay. She cries when she thinks I don't see her." Keanu nodded slowly. "I'm sorry." She looked at him again, studying his face, like she could see something others couldn't. Then she asked, "You don't have a family too?" That question hit Keanu harder than anything he had heard in years. He couldn't speak for a moment. He just looked at her, and his eyes became glossy. "Not anymore," he finally said. The girl looked down at her balloon. "Me and Mommy live in the yellow building over there. I'm going to have my birthday next week. I want you to come." Keanu smiled, surprised. "You don't even know me." "But I do," she said with childlike confidence. "You look lonely. I don't want you to be." That sentence broke something open in him, not in a painful way, more like a light cracking through a closed window. "What's your name?" he asked. "Leela." "Leela," he repeated softly. "Nice to meet you. You can come. We'll have cake, and I'll give you a balloon." Keanu chuckled, his first real laugh in days. "I haven't been to a birthday party in a long time." She jumped off the bench. "Then it's time. I'll tell Mommy." Before he could say anything else, she was running off toward the yellow building. Keanu watched her go, her balloon dancing behind her in the cold breeze. He sat still for a few more minutes, unsure of what just happened. Something small, but powerful. A stranger had looked into his pain and answered it with kindness. No expectations, no idea who he was. Just a child who saw a man sitting alone and chose to care. As he walked away from the park, he felt something shift inside. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was the idea that even the smallest voices could remind us we're still human, still needed, still seen. And for the first time in a long time, Keanu Reeves didn't feel like a ghost moving through the world. He felt invited, and that changed everything. The candle in the window. Keanu couldn't stop thinking about Leela after he left the park. That night, as he sat alone in his kitchen with a cup of tea, he kept replaying her voice in his head. "You look lonely. I don't want you to be." It was strange how a child's words could cut deeper than any adult conversation he'd had in years, and the way she looked at him, not with pity, not with awe, just with care. Simple, honest care. The next morning, he walked back to the same park, half expecting it to be a dream. But the yellow building Leela mentioned stood across the street, just like she said. An old apartment complex with peeling paint and clotheslines on every balcony. on the third floor. He noticed a small window with a drawing taped to the glass, a stick figure holding hands with another, and a red balloon floating above them. Underneath it, written in crayon, were the words Leela and friend. Keanu felt something stir in his chest. Without really thinking, he crossed the street and stood at the edge of the sidewalk, staring up at that little window. He didn't go inside, didn't ring the bell, just stood there for a while, like he was afraid of stepping into something too good to be true. Inside the apartment, Leela was watching from the curtain. "Mommy," she whispered, "he's here." The man from the bench, her mother, walked over, a tired-looking woman in her mid-30s with gentle eyes and worn hands. She looked down at the street and froze. She knew that face, everyone did. But what struck her wasn't that a famous man stood outside her building. It was the look in his eyes, soft, unsure, like he was waiting to be told he mattered. "He's just standing there," Leela said. Her mom knelt beside her. "Do you want him to come up?" Leela nodded fast. "Yes, please." So her mom opened the window and waved. Keanu looked up, startled, then waved back. She signaled for him to come. He hesitated only a moment before crossing the street. Inside, the apartment was small but clean. Drawings taped to the fridge, a broken clock on the wall, a candle lit near the couch. The kind of home built with effort and love, not money. When the door opened, Keanu stepped inside slowly. He removed his shoes without being asked. "I'm sorry for just showing up," he said. "It's all right," her mom replied, holding back a strange mix of nerves and kindness. "I'm Megan, and thank you for being kind to Leela yesterday. She was the kind one." Keanu said quietly. "I just sat there." Leela ran up and took his hand. "I made you something." She pulled him to the living room and handed him a folded paper. It was a drawing to people sitting on a bench. One had long hair and a sad face. The other had pigtails and a smile. Above them was a balloon and the words, "Don't be sad." Keanu looked at it for a long moment before whispering, "Thank you." "Do you want to stay for dinner?" Megan asked. He blinked, unsure. "I don't want to intrude." "You're not," she said. "You're welcome here." They ate together rice, beans, and grilled vegetables. It was simple, but warm, and for the first time in years, Keanu laughed at the dinner table, not because of a joke, not because of something clever, just because Leela spilled water on herself and yelled, "I'm a waterfall." And the way she said it was so honest, so full of life, it pulled something deep from his chest, something he thought had gone quiet forever. After dinner, they lit a candle and played a board game with missing pieces. Megan explained that the candle was something they did every night. "We light it for people we miss," she said, "and sometimes for people we hope will come back." That night, Keanu walked home slower than usual. The cold air bit at his face, but his heart felt warm. He held the drawing in one hand, folded carefully in his coat pocket. As he reached his front door, he paused and looked up at the sky. He had spent years hiding behind work, behind silence, behind the belief that maybe he didn't deserve moments like these anymore. But a little girl with a balloon and a bright yellow jacket had changed that in 2 days. She had given him a gift without knowing. It an invitation back to life and the promise of a birthday party to come. He lit a candle that night, not for someone he lost, but for someone he just found. A chair with his name on it. Days passed slowly, but something inside Keanu had shifted. He didn't go back to the studio. He didn't answer calls or check emails. He walked the same streets, but this time, he noticed things: a mother holding her baby tighter in the cold wind, an old man feeding birds in the park, a boy helping his little sister tie her shoe. For the first time in a long time, Keanu wasn't just passing through life, he was seeing it. He returned to the park every day around the same time, sitting on the same bench. Sometimes Leela would run to him from school, her backpack bouncing, her voice full of stories about her classmates, her drawings, her dreams. Sometimes she brought him cookies wrapped in napkins. Once she gave him a rock that looked like a heart. But what moved him most wasn't the gifts or the laughter. It was how natural she made everything feel, like he belonged there, like the space beside her was always meant for him. On a Wednesday afternoon, She burst into the park with her arms wide open. "We bought decorations," she shouted. "Mommy says we can use the backyard for my birthday." Keanu smiled. "That sounds perfect. You're coming, right? Wouldn't miss it for the world." Then she added shyly, "We made a chair for you. It has your name." He raised an eyebrow. "My name?" She nodded seriously. "You're the guest of honor." Keanu felt his throat tighten. No one had used that word for him in years. Guest of honor, not for a premiere, not for a show, but for a child's birthday. In a backyard where balloons might not float high, but hearts would dot later that evening. Keanu stood in a quiet store aisle, holding a small wrapped box. It had taken him hours to decide. He didn't want to bring something loud or expensive. He wanted something that meant something, something Leela would remember, not because of the price, but because of the story. He chose a music box, wooden, hand-carved. When you turned the key, it played a soft lullaby. He remembered hearing that tune as a child, when his own mother would hum it beside his bed. He thought Leela might like it to dot at home. He placed the box on the counter and wrote a small note, "For your dreams, from your bench friend." He didn't sign his name. He wanted it to feel like something from a person, not a name from a screen. On Saturday, the morning of the party, the sky was clear and soft blue. The air still held a bite of cold, but the sun pushed through the clouds with a kind of quiet strength. Like it, too, wanted to see Leela smile. Keanu arrived early, holding the gift under one arm. He wore a clean shirt, simple jeans, and a small nervous smile. The backyard was small, but full of life. Colorful streamers stretched between laundry poles. A plastic table held a bowl of popcorn, 2 bottles of soda, and cupcakes with sprinkles. Paper butterflies hung from the fence, fluttering in the breeze. And there, in the middle of it all, was a chair. It was just a folding chair, but covered in hand-drawn pictures, stick figures, balloons, stars, and one big red heart with the words for Keanu written in crayon. He stood still, overcome. He hadn't cried in a long time, but he felt it rising now, slow and warm. Leela ran to him. "You're here, wouldn't miss it," he said, his voice thick. Megan smiled from the porch, holding a tray of sandwiches. "We're glad you came." Kids from the neighborhood slowly gathered. Not many, but enough. They played tag, threw paper airplanes, and danced to music playing from an old speaker. Keanu watched, laughed, even joined a game of balloon toss. He was awkward at first, but the children didn't care. They just wanted him to play. When it came time for cake, everyone sang, and Leela made a wish with her eyes closed tight. Keanu noticed her hands were clasped in front of her chest, fingers trembling like she really believed. After the cake, Leela opened her gifts. Toys, books, a teddy bear. Then she opened the music box. She turned the key, and the soft tune filled the air. Everyone went quiet. Even the wind seemed to stop. Leela didn't say a word. She just hugged it close and looked at him with tears in her eyes. Then she did something no one expected. She walked up to him, stood on her toes, and kissed his cheek. "Thank you," she whispered. "You're my best friend." Keanu swallowed hard. "You're mine too." Megan came beside them, holding back tears of her own. "You've given her something no one else could. You showed up." And in that moment, Keanu realized something powerful. It wasn't about what he brought. It wasn't about the music box or the cake or the decorations. It was about presence, about sitting on a bench. About saying yes to a balloon and a smile. And that simple yes had led him to something he didn't know he needed. A family. The storm and the story. A week passed after the party, but its warmth lingered in Keanu's heart like sunlight after the rain. He found himself smiling for no reason, walking slower, breathing deeper. There was something healing in the simplicity of it all. A backyard, cupcakes, a folding chair with his name. No paparazzi, no interviews, no red carpets, just laughter, candles, and a child who believed in magic. He visited Leela and Megan often, sometimes with groceries, sometimes with books, sometimes with nothing but time. He helped fix a broken cabinet. He walked Leela to school one morning when Megan's shift started early. He even sat through a very long tea party where all the guests were stuffed animals, and he was declared the royal cookie guard. But life has a way of testing things when they start to bloom. One afternoon, dark clouds gathered over the city. The air felt heavy, as if holding back something bigger. Keanu was sitting at home, reading a worn book Leela had lent him, a story about a tree that gave everything it had for a boy. When his phone buzzed, it was a message from Megan. Need to talk. Can you come over? He grabbed his coat and umbrella and hurried through the streets as the first drops began to fall. When he reached the yellow building, he found Megan waiting by the door, her face pale. What happened? He asked, concerned. She looked at him, eyes red. Leela collapsed at school. His heart dropped. She's at the hospital now. They think it's her heart. There were signs. But I thought it was just tiredness or stress. I didn't know. Keanu put a hand on her shoulder. I'm coming with you. They rushed to the hospital together. The rain falling harder, the streets slick and shiny like mirrors. Inside the emergency room, the air smelled of antiseptic and quiet panic. Leela was hooked to wires and machines, her little chest rising slowly. When Keanu stepped into the room, her eyes fluttered open, weak but smiling. You came, always, he whispered, brushing hair from her forehead. The doctor entered. Moments later, holding a chart. She has a congenital heart defect. It's been there since birth. Manageable with medication, but she'll need surgery soon. We're lucky it didn't happen earlier. Megan's knees gave way slightly, and Keanu caught her. The doctor continued, we're running more tests. But if things don't improve, she'll be transferred to a specialist unit downtown. After the doctor left, the silence in the room was loud. Megan sat beside Lila's bed, her hands trembling. Keanu sat on the other side and held Lila's tiny hand. I don't want to stay here, she said quietly. I want to go back home and draw more pictures. You will, Keanu said softly. You'll draw hundreds more. But inside, he didn't feel sure. He felt helpless. The next morning, Keanu made some calls, not to movie producers or agents, but to doctors, to charities, to people he had helped before, and those who owed him favors. He didn't want anything in return, just the best care for Leela, the best hospital, the best surgeon. When he returned to the hospital later that day, he brought Leela a new sketchpad, colored pencils, and a balloon, red, like the one she had the day they met. Her smile returned. If only a little. He knelt beside her bed. I made a deal with the clouds. What kind of deal? She whispered. They agreed to go away if you promised to get better. She giggled faintly. That's silly, maybe. But silly sometimes works. He stayed the night in the chair, beside her bed. He watched her sleep. He watched Megan wipe her tears when she thought no one saw. Round a.m., the rain stopped outside. The city was silent, just the hum of machines and the slow rhythm of a little girl's heartbeat. Keanu closed his eyes and remembered his own childhood hospital visits, his sister's last days, the quiet between heartbeats, the fear of losing someone who felt like home. But this time, he was not going to run. He wasn't going to disappear into work or silence. He was going to fight. For Leela. For Megan. For the small piece of joy that had entered his life when he least expected it. And for the first time in years, Keanu Reeves felt something stronger than sadness. He felt purpose. The promise he couldn't break. The morning after the long hospital night, the room was flooded with soft yellow light. Outside, the clouds had cleared, and a single ray of sunshine fell across Lila's bed, as if the sky itself had made a promise. Leela opened her eyes slowly, blinking into the warmth, and the first thing she saw was Keanu, still in the chair, his head resting on folded arms by her side, his jacket draped over his shoulders like a blanket. You're still here, she whispered. His eyes opened, gentle but tired. Of course, I said I would be. She smiled faintly, her voice barely above a breath. Can we go to the park again? When I'm better, we'll go every day, he said, and we'll make the biggest paper airplane anyone's ever seen. Megan came in with 2 coffees. She looked better, but only on the outside. Her eyes still held that quiet panic mothers carry when their child is in danger. She handed 1 cup to Keanu and sat down beside him. I talked to the nurse, she said. They're moving her to the Children's Heart Center downtown. The surgery might happen this week. depending on the test results. Keanu nodded. I made a few calls. Some people I trust are going to be there too. Top doctors. Best team. I promise she's in the right hands. Megan blinked fast. You didn't have to. I wanted to. He interrupted softly. She gave me a reason to breathe again. This is the least I can do. The next few days moved slowly. Leela was transferred by ambulance, and Keanu followed behind in his car. He stayed at a nearby hotel, but spent most of his time in her new room, helping her draw pictures of animals wearing sunglasses or watching cartoons where every character had silly voices. One afternoon, Leela looked at him seriously. Are you scared? A little, he admitted. Me too, she said. But when I'm scared, I pretend I'm in a movie, and I'm the hero. Keanu smiled. You are the hero. She leaned closer and whispered, You're my sidekick. He chuckled. Best job I've ever had. That evening, the doctors gave them the final update. Lila's surgery would happen in 2 days. The risks were real, but they were hopeful. Her condition was difficult, but treatable, and most of all, she was strong. Keanu stepped outside to get some air, and that's when it hit him. He wasn't prepared for the possibility that she might not wake up. The thought of that silence, of that empty bench, of that window without a candle, of the chair with his name on it being just a folded memory, it hit him harder than anything ever had. He sat on the hospital steps, his face in his hands, and for the first time in a long time, Keanu Reeves prayed not to be famous, not for another film, not for his own peace, but for a little girl who gave him back his soul. The night before the surgery, Leela made one last drawing. It showed a tall man with messy hair, a little girl with pigtails, and a big balloon that read, After this, we go to the park. She gave it to him and said, Don't forget. I won't, he promised. I never break promises. He stayed with her until the nurses came to take her in. Megan walked beside them, holding Lila's hand tightly. As they reached the operating room, Leela looked back at Keanu. You'll be there when I wake up. He knelt down and looked her in the eyes. I'll be the first face you see. Then the doors closed, and the waiting began. Keanu didn't sit. He paced. For hours, the clock on the wall seemed broken. Every minute felt like 10. Megan cried quietly in the corner, whispering prayers under her breath. After 4 hours, a nurse finally came out. The doctor will speak to you now. Keanu and Megan rushed to the hallway. The surgeon stepped forward, removing his gloves. She's okay, he said. The surgery was difficult, but she made it through. She's strong. We'll monitor her closely, but she's going to be all right. Megan fell into tears. Keanu closed his eyes, his entire body sagging with relief. When they were allowed to see her, Leela was asleep. Machines beeped softly, her chest wrapped in bandages, her lips pale but peaceful. Keanu sat beside her and whispered, I kept my promise. He reached into his jacket and placed the new drawing beside her pillow. He didn't say much after that. Just held her hand. And in that small, silent moment, something beautiful happened. He stopped being the lonely man on the bench. He had become something else. A part of a family. And families don't give up. The candle that never went out. Weeks passed. Lila's recovery was slow, but steady. The doctors were amazed at her strength. They said most children would need months to stand. But Leela, she was drawing again by the 2nd week, singing by the 3rd. And one afternoon, when the sun poured into the hospital room just right, she stood up on her tiny feet, looked at Keanu, and said, Let's go home soon, okay? He smiled. You got it, hero. Keanu had canceled everything, the meetings, the scripts, the offers. He never explained it to the world, never made a statement. He just stayed, because staying was the only thing that mattered. He had once lived a life filled with noise, but here, in a quiet hospital room with crayons and cartoons, he found peace. Megan often watched him from the doorway, the way he tied Lila's shoes, the way he bent low to listen when she whispered, the way his eyes lit up when she laughed. One evening, while folding laundry in the corner, she spoke softly, not looking at him. Before all this, I was drowning, working 2 jobs, scared all the time, and then you showed up, like a stranger the universe sent. Keanu didn't respond at first. He just kept organizing Lila's sketchbook pages. Then he said, "Maybe." We both needed rescuing. When Lila was finally discharged, the whole floor seemed to cheer. The nurses clapped, the doctors smiled, and the woman at the reception desk gave her a teddy bear twice her size. As they walked out, Lila held both her mother's and Keanu's hands. She looked up at him with a grin and asked, "Can we go to the park now, right now?" He laughed. "You just got out. I promised the trees I'd come back." And so they did. The bench was still there, waiting. The grass had grown a little wild. The sky was wide and blue, and in that moment, the world felt full of second chances. They sat together, Keanu, Lila, and Megan, sharing a peanut butter sandwich and watching clouds move slowly like stories in the sky. Other kids ran nearby, laughing. An old man fed birds again, and life just kept happening. Later that evening, as the sun began to set, they walked back to the yellow building. From the street, Keanu looked up at the third-floor window and saw something new taped to the glass. It was Lila's latest drawing. 3 stick figures this time, one tall to small, all holding hands. Above them, in bright colors, the words, "My family." He didn't say anything. He couldn't. His throat tightened, and tears touched the corners of his eyes. Not of sadness, but of something deeper, something healing. Inside the apartment, a candle burned again, like always, but this time it wasn't for someone lost. It was for someone returned. They ate dinner together. Lila told jokes that didn't make sense. Megan made soup, and Keanu laughed so hard at one of Lila's impressions that he spilled water all over himself, again becoming the waterfall, as Lila called it. After dinner, Keanu stood near the window, holding his cup of tea. Megan joined him quietly. "You don't have to go back to your old life," she said. "But if you do, just promise you won't forget us." He turned to her. "You changed my old life. I don't think I could ever go back to who I was before." Then he looked over at Lila, curled up on the couch, clutching the music box. "I used to think I had no one left," he said, "but now I think I was just waiting to be found." A few months later, the world learned Keanu Reeves had quietly bought the apartment complex where Lila and Megan lived. He fixed the leaking pipes, painted the walls, added a garden out back, and never said a word about it publicly. He just said, "Everyone deserves a safe place." And on the day of Lila's next birthday, the backyard was once again filled with balloons. There were more people this time, neighbors, kids, even a few nurses from the hospital. But in the center of it all stood the same old folding chair. This time, it had 3 names written on it: Lila, Megan, Keanu. And taped to the back was a sign in big crayon letters: "Family Table." That night, long after the candles were blown and the cake was gone, Lila pulled Keanu aside. "You're not lonely anymore, right?" He knelt down and held her hands. "Not even a little bit." She smiled. "Good, because you're ours now." And from that moment on, he truly was. A man once known to the world simply as a movie star had become something more. A friend, a father figure. A light, not because he saved anyone with power or money, but because he sat on a bench and said yes to a balloon, and the world, his world, changed forever.